Diplomatic ties are for communication between countries where it's deemed beneficial for both sides to actually be talking to the other side. The West African nation of Burkina Faso has decided that France, their former colonial master, is not worth keeping ties with at this moment in time. So in the last 48 hours, they broke off their diplomatic ties as announced by the Burkinabe, the people of the nation, in a televised address yesterday, Friday. The communications minister basically said, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but basically he said, France be moving mad. Can't trust them. Never could have. They keep trying to meddle in our internal affairs. And then he even accused France of supporting insurgents and subversive networks within Burkina Faso. Basically saying, you're helping rebel groups and people who want to destabilize, overthrow the government in Burkina Faso because Burkina Faso represents something powerful that you fear, especially if other nations in West Africa and Africa as a whole see what you don't want them to see. So you're helping our enemies inside the state destabilize the state. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Hang up. That's what they've done. That's the news. Now here's the sip of tea, except it's mango juice, Rubicon specifically. There's a lot going on in the world. You need to stay hydrated if you want to keep up with the times. Maybe I should make a podcast called The Days of Our Lives, just to sort of call back to Friends, which is a TV show I used to love. So no one told you life was... Anyway, sorry. Here's the analysis. Burkina Faso and their leader Ibrahim Traoré is one of those nations and one of those leaders that don't really get coverage in the Western world, even though I would assess that what's happening here in West Africa could contribute to the shaping of much of the continent. The AES, the Alliance of Sahel States, is, if you've seen my previous videos on the topic, a very pivotal, you could say, union of nations, Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso. We won't get into that now. But you have to remember, Africa is a continent that was once so colonized, so thoroughly and violently during the Victorian era, during Europe's industrialization, that many of the nations here in this African continent to this day remain unstable, economically impoverished, dependent on aid and handouts and their former colonial masters, and they struggle on, basically surviving colonization. They're just survivors. And democracy here especially, one could argue, is the most pointless. I have to say many could argue, right? Analytically, wow, this is where my bias is coming out, but analytically speaking, this is not biased. Many African countries have democracy, but they're still poor, and really poor. And the people change out, the leaders change out in the democracy. There's the nice little merry-go-round of officials, but everyone stays poor. You could be like, Baba, you are biased, because let's be honest, democracy everywhere is like that. Don't you have 7 prime ministers in 10 years? Shush about that, shush. We're not talking about the UK right now. Burkina Faso is basically built different. They don't have democracy, by the way. For better or worse. They have a military ruler, Ibrahim Traoré. Burkina Faso, they threw off their reliance on their old masters, said that economic prosperity and uplifting the nation is more important than the vote at this moment. So we're reprioritizing the system, and they're focusing on trying to build self-sufficiency and sovereignty. It's not going to be easy, and it hasn't been easy so far, but there can be no doubt. If you look up the stats, they have done a lot in terms of taking things that they were reliant on others for and building it domestically. Building domestically the capabilities of extracting from the ground of Burkina Faso resources and selling them in a way that brings the wealth and the benefits to the nation. It doesn't just for free, basically, almost for free, just hand out the resources of this African country, and some other country takes the spoils, takes the profits. And that's something that a lot of African countries to this day struggle with. They got the wealth in terms of natural resources, but they're just structured, one could argue intentionally structured by outside powers, to not be able to reap the benefits of that wealth that lie beneath their feet. Someone else benefits all the way over there on that continent. Support from other nations when it comes to the security of Burkina Faso, when it comes to investment needed by Burkina Faso, especially from China, may offer this country a way to pursue success, pursue prosperity for the nation of 23 million people. Now, from France's perspective, I'm not saying they do support any groups or agents to destabilize the Burkinabe state. I'm not saying that, because I have no public evidence to say that they do. But analytically, it would make sense if France chose to take that route and try and destabilize the nation, try and even overthrow the government. Just objectively, it makes sense. France is a nation that is built and that has benefited greatly from its colonial territories in Africa. Even to this day, many natural resources are exported from Africa to France at shockingly discounted rates, and then France uses its own advanced industries to level up those goods, value add, as the economists would say, and then they sell them for a fabulous profit. Burkina Faso is a nation that's ripped itself out of France's sphere of influence. They still have some ties. They're not fully out. They're not fully sovereign in that regard. They're not fully independent of, not reliant anymore on France. Their currency still, for example, is tied to France. The CFA franc is the Burkina Faso currency, and that's pegged to the euro, which is France's currency. Generally, though, the country is pulling away from France, has been for several years. So for French geopolitical benefit, it makes sense to make the journey for Burkina Faso particularly painful. So other nations still within France's sphere of influence can be shown Burkina Faso as an example by France. They can say, look over there, see how hard it is to go alone. I would not recommend it, mon ami. You can if you want to, but I would not recommend it. Stay close to les Français and we will take good care of you, and as we always have. Would you like croissant? The Burkina Faso claim that France is interfering in internal matters of the state and supporting rebels and dangerous elements in an effort to destabilize the country is plausible, even if I cannot say it's confirmed by actual facts on the ground, verified by outside sources. I can't say that, but it is plausible when you objectively look at it. And verified or not, the country has used that excuse, you could say, to cut ties with France. Let us see where things go from here. And for the unbiased news and analysis without the Western spin, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mahfouz Talukder, aka News Baba, not a citizen of Burkina Faso, but I do some reading here and there. I'm News Baba, and I'll see you on the next one.